I was slapped at my own engagement. They called it a lesson. He stayed silent, so I grabbed boiling soup and walked away forever. The ballroom of the Hyatt was dazzling that night. A massive Swarovski crystal chandelier hung from the ceiling, scattering countless shards of colored light across the burgundy velvet, draped tables below. The tabletops were crowded with beautifully plated dishes, and at the center stood a 5-tier champagne tower shimmering invitingly. Sage Hale sat upright at the head table, wearing an ivory couture gown that had been flown in from Milan just the week before. The dress had been personally chosen by Kai Bennett's mother, Elise Bennett, said to symbolize purity and elegance, the kind meant to highlight a bride-to-be's noble grace. The problem was, the waist was cinched far too tight. Every breath felt like invisible hands squeezing her ribs. She quietly drew in a breath of cool air and held the perfect curve of her smile in place. Today was her engagement ceremony with Kai. Nearly all of the Bennett family's relatives and old friends had turned out, filling 6 large round tables. Between clinking glasses and loud laughter, the noise nearly lifted the roof. Kai sat beside her, his cheeks flushed from drinking, grinning as he raised a toast to one of his uncles. "Sage, don't just sit there. Eat something," someone called. Kai's mother, her future mother-in-law, smiled warmly as she picked up a glossy slice of abalone and placed it onto Sage's fine bone china plate. "Thank you, Elise," Sage replied softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Oh my, why are you still calling me that? That sounds so distant," Elise said with a playful scold. She deliberately raised her voice just enough for the nearby tables to hear, and instantly several pairs of eyes turned toward Sage. Heat rushed to Sage's face, embarrassment making it hard for her to sit still. Kai nudged her lightly with his elbow and lowered his voice. "Call her Mom," he reminded her. Sage's lips parted, then closed again. The word felt foreign on her tongue. She rolled it around silently, but it refused to pass her throat. It felt unbearably awkward, like she was acting in a play. She and Kai had been together for 5 years, yet she'd only met his family formally a handful of times. Every time, Elise and the older women of the Bennett family had looked at her with undisguised scrutiny, as they were appraisers at an auction house, carefully inspecting an antique of uncertain origin. "She's shy," Elise chuckled lightly, choosing not to push further as she turned to greet other guests. Sage finally let out a quiet breath of relief. She picked up her silver chopsticks, reaching for the asparagus at the far end of the table. When, before the tips touched the plate, a sharp female voice cut in. "Sage." Sage looked up to see Kai's eldest aunt, Lila, approaching with a glass of red wine in hand. Lila was nearly 60, her freshly permed hair styled into exaggerated curls. She wore a jade green velvet suit that reflected garish light under the chandelier, and her makeup was so thick it looked ready to crack. She stopped beside Sage and pressed a hand, adorned with an oversized jade ring, heavily against the back of Sage's chair. "Not that I want to lecture you," Lila said, her tone cool, "but you really need to learn some manners." Her voice wasn't loud, yet it carried an uncanny authority. The surrounding chatter faded, and all eyes fixed on Sage like spotlights. Sage's heart sank. She calmly set down her chopsticks. "Aunt Lila, what do you mean?" Lila gestured lazily with the base of her wineglass toward the older Bennett seated at the head table. "Look around. Everyone here today is Kai's closest blood relative. As the future daughter-in-law of the Bennett family, shouldn't you go around and toast each of them personally? Show some sincerity. Show some gratitude." She paused, smiling faintly, though her eyes were cold and appraising. "Kai is the only precious heir of our generation. For you to marry into the Bennett family, that's a blessing you must have earned over several lifetimes. You should know how to be grateful." Under the table, Sage's fingers curled tightly into the tablecloth. Kai had mentioned the toasting before, but she'd found the idea of going table to table, like being paraded, overly performative. She'd planned to thank everyone together on stage with Kai later. She hadn't expected Lila to single her out like this in front of everyone. Sensing trouble, Kai stood up at once, forcing a smile. "Aunt Lila, Sage can't really handle alcohol. She gets flushed right away." "We'll toast everyone together." "I'll do it. I'll drink on her behalf." Lila abruptly flung her hand aside, knocking his glass away. Red wine splashed across the floor. "Step aside. This is a woman's matter. What do you know?" She stared straight at Sage, her tone suddenly harsh. Tonight, she must toast every single glass herself. That's the rule. It's the Bennett family's test for a newcomer. If she won't even show this much sincerity, does that mean she looks down on our family? Elise spoke up at just the right moment, her voice gentle on the surface, yet heavy with pressure. "Sage, your aunt is right. Traditions matter. Go on, make the rounds. Let everyone see how thoughtful and well-mannered the woman Kai chose is." Watching the two women echo each other, Sage felt as if her chest were stuffed with waterlogged cotton, heavy, suffocating. She looked to Kai for help, silently pleading for him to stand by her. But Kai awkwardly avoided her gaze and whispered, almost begging, "Sage, maybe just do it. Endure it. It'll be over soon." Whispers buzzed around her like mosquitoes. Kids these days really have no sense of propriety. Exactly. You can tell she didn't come from a respectable family. Kai's just too soft. He'll be completely controlled by her after this. The looks of disdain and schadenfreude pierced her back like countless poison needles. Sage took a deep breath, clinging to the last shred of dignity she had left. "Aunt Lila, Elise, I'm not refusing to toast. I just think going one by one will take too long, and I worry about neglecting guests. How about later Kai and I thank everyone together from the stage?" Lila let out a sharp, mocking laugh. "Together? How is that the same? You're you. He's him. That attitude alone is a problem." Her voice rose, shrill and cutting. "A woman's duty after marriage is obedience and good conduct. You haven't even joined the family yet, and you're already talking back to elders, embarrassing the Bennetts. What will happen in the future?" Blood rushed to Sage's head with a roar. In her 25 years of life, even her own parents had never humiliated her like this in public. "Aunt Lila," she said steadily, "I believe in respecting elders, but respect goes both ways." Lila reacted as if her tail had been stepped on, bristling instantly, like a rabid dog ready to explode. "Mutual respect? Who do you think you are talking to me about mutual anything?" Lila snapped. "I've lived longer than you've been alive. Who are you to lecture me, you little girl?" She suddenly stepped forward, her bulky body nearly crashing into Sage's chest. "You're just badly raised, that's what I see. Spent a few years studying overseas, and now you think you're above everyone else? You don't even put us elders in your eyes anymore. I'm going to teach you some manners today, on behalf of your good-for-nothing parents." Before the words had even finished leaving her mouth, Lila raised the thick hand wearing the jade ring, put all her strength into it, and swung hard at Sage's face. Smack! The sharp, explosive sound echoed through the banquet hall, which had fallen into instant, absolute silence. Sage's head snapped to the side from the impact. Her left cheek began swelling visibly, a searing, burning pain spreading in an instant. Her ears rang violently, as if the world had been muted. She clutched her face, staring in disbelief at Lila's twisted, ferocious expression. The entire hall was frozen. Everyone stood stunned, shocked, speechless by the sudden scene. Lila shook her aching hand, lifted her wrinkled chin smugly, and announced loudly, both to the horrified crowd and to Sage, like a victorious general, "See that? Women only behave after they're taught a lesson. Otherwise, they'll think they can do anything." Sage's mind went blank. Her face burned with pain, while her heart plunged into icy humiliation and raging fury. Blood thundered against her eardrums. She looked at Lila's face, grotesquely warped with triumph. She looked at the surrounding eyes, some shocked, some indifferent, some secretly delighted. And finally, her gaze landed on the man beside her, Kai, who stood pale and flustered, lips trembling, yet never once stepping forward. 5 years together, and in this moment he couldn't even offer her the most basic defense. Her heart went completely cold. All the suppressed grievance, anger, and resentment burst through the last fragile dam of reason. Sage suddenly turned, her icy gaze locking onto the large tureen of steaming mushroom soup at the center of the table. The elegant white porcelain bowl was filled with thick, golden liquid, still boiling hot. Without the slightest hesitation, she lifted the bowl and dumped it straight over Lila's head. Ah! Scalding soup drenched Lila from head to face. She let out a shrill, pig-like scream, hopping frantically in place. Her expensive velvet suit was instantly soaked and ruined. Her hair and face were covered in sticky broth and chopped mushrooms. She looked utterly miserable. The boiling soup splashed onto several nearby relatives who hadn't dodged in time. Screams, curses, and cries erupted at once, detonating chaos across the banquet hall. This is outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. Elise was the first to recover, pointing at Sage with a violently shaking finger. You crazy woman! How dare you attack an elder? Lila, teeth bared in pain, wiped at her face wildly while screaming at the top of her lungs. My face? My new outfit. It burns. This is insane. You shameless woman! How dare you throw soup on me? Sage stood quietly where she was, still holding the now empty soup bowl. Her chest rose and fell sharply. 5 clear finger marks stood out on her swollen cheek, but her eyes were terrifyingly calm and cold. An elder? She glanced at Elise, then shifted her gaze to the utterly disheveled Lila. Her voice wasn't loud, yet it cut into everyone's ears like ice. Someone who abuses their age, throws their weight around, and hits people in public. Does that deserve to be called an elder? You think you're in the right? Elise roared, lunging forward to grab her. Sage calmly stepped back, avoiding her hands, and turned to look at Kai, who had stood frozen the entire time. Kai's face was paper white. He looked from his battered aunt to Sage's resolute expression. His lips trembled for a long moment before he finally forced out a sentence. Sage, you went too far. How could you throw boiling soup on my aunt? At that moment, the very last flicker of warmth in Sage's heart went out. She looked at the man who had once sworn to protect her for life and felt only estrangement and bitter irony. Too far. She pointed at her badly swollen cheek and asked coldly. She slapped me across the face in front of hundreds of people. Was that not too far? Your entire Bennett family ganging up to humiliate me, forcing me into submission. Was that not too far? Kai, that slap and that bowl of soup. I'm returning them to your Bennett family. She slammed the empty bowl onto the table with a loud crash, rattling the dishes. This engagement is off. With that, she didn't spare them another glance. She straightened her trembling spine and turned to walk out of the hall. The couture dress still bound her tightly, but every step she took now was firm and resolute. Stop right there! Elise screamed hysterically behind her. You think you can just walk away after hitting someone? No way! Kai, stop her! Kai rushed after her instinctively, reaching for her arm. Sage whirled around, her gaze sharp as a blade. Don't touch me! The freezing finality in her eyes made Kai's outstretched hand stiffen in midair. Sage let out a contemptuous laugh and turned away, heading straight for the exit. Behind her were Lila's relentless wailing, Elise's vicious curses, and the relatives' overlapping chatter. This is lawless. What kind of family raised a daughter like this? Call the police! Arrest this lunatic! Sage ignored it all. She strode out of the banquet hall, as if an invisible wall had sealed off all the noise and filth behind her. The hallway lights were dim. She quickened her pace until she turned a corner and confirmed no one had followed. Only then did she slam her back against the cold wall. The strength she'd been forcing herself to hold on to drained away in an instant, and her body began to tremble uncontrollably. The spot where she'd been slapped still burned, but the pain in her heart was 1,000 times worse. Tears finally welled up despite her resistance. She stubbornly lifted her chin, trying with all her might to force them back. Don't cry. At least not here. Not for people who aren't worth it. She took several deep breaths in a row, struggling to calm the storm churning inside her. Pulling out her phone, she decisively booked a rideshare. While waiting, she stared at her reflection in the phone's dark screen, her swollen cheek glaringly obvious. Her gaze slowly shifted, from sadness to coldness, and finally to a bone-deep resolve. This was not over. The Bennett family would pay dearly for today's humiliation. The car arrived quickly. Sage opened the door, got in, and calmly gave her home address. As the car pulled away from the hotel, neon lights streaked past the window. She took out her phone and pressed and held the power button. Right now, she needed absolute silence and time to think carefully about what to do next. When she got home, Sage went straight into the bathroom. She turned on the faucet and rinsed her swollen, burning left cheek again and again with icy tap water. The woman in the mirror looked disheveled, hair slightly messy. The neckline of her expensive dress creased from the earlier struggle, but her eyes were strikingly clear. Not a trace of tears left. The cold water dulled the pain a little, but it sharpened her mind. From the living room came the sound of her parents watching the evening news, mixed with faint laughter. They had no idea about the nightmare that had unfolded at the engagement banquet. Sage turned off the faucet and gently patted her face dry with a towel. She had to come up with a flawless explanation. Tell them outright that someone from the Bennett family slapped her in front of everyone, she dumped hot soup back, and then called off the engagement on the spot. With her parents' cautious, law-abiding personalities, they'd never handle that kind of shock. Their first instinct would be to drag her over to apologize and smooth things over. Especially her mother, Elowen, who had always believed Sage was marrying up. The Bennetts owned a new tech company worth millions, far above her own middle-class family's means. Elowen had constantly reminded her to be patient, to endure, to be sensible. Sage stared at herself in the mirror and took a deep breath. She couldn't tell the truth. At least, not yet. She needed time to plan. After changing out of the restrictive gown and into loose, comfortable cotton loungewear, Sage stepped out of the bathroom. "You're back already? Why did it end so early?" Her mother, Elowen, turned from the couch with a smile. Her father, Silas, set down the remote and looked over as well. Sage forced her expression to look normal. "Yeah, it's over. I'm a little tired. I'm going to rest in my room." She angled her body slightly, trying to avoid their probing looks, eager to retreat. "Hey, what's wrong with your face?" Elowen's sharp eyes caught the unnatural redness on Sage's left cheek. She immediately stood and hurried over. Silas frowned. "Yeah, why is that side so red?" Sage's heart tightened, but she casually touched her face. "Oh, it's nothing. Probably an allergy, or maybe I drank a little and it flushed." Elowen leaned in to look closely. The mark was clearly shaped like 5 fingers. Her face changed instantly. "An allergy? That's obviously a slap mark." "Sage, tell me the truth. What happened? Did Kai—" "It wasn't him!" Sage cut in immediately. "Mom, really, it's nothing. I just bumped into someone by accident. I'm exhausted. I really want to sleep." Afraid her mother would notice more, she said no more, hurried into her room and locked the door. Leaning against the cold door, she could clearly hear her parents' anxious whispers outside. "Something definitely happened. Look at her face. She doesn't want to talk." "Don't push her." Sage slid down the door and sat on the floor, closing her eyes in exhaustion. Her phone stayed powered off. She didn't have the courage to turn it on. She knew that once she did, she'd be buried under missed calls and messages, and furious demands from Kai and his family. She needed calm. She needed a plan. That night, Sage didn't sleep at all. The humiliating scene at the banquet replayed endlessly in her mind, along with Kai's cowardly, unfamiliar face. Her heart felt submerged in ice water, aching and numb. Only when the sky began to pale at dawn did she finally drift into shallow sleep. When she woke again, sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting broken patterns across the floor. She grabbed her phone from the nightstand. 8 o'clock sharp. She turned it on. As expected, after a brief pause, the phone erupted with violent vibrations. Missed calls and notifications flooded the screen. Most were from Kai. A few were from his mother, Elise. The messaging app showed a blunt, 99+ unread messages. Expressionless, Sage opened her chat with Kai. At the top were dozens of missed voice call requests. Below them, long messages stacked one after another. "Sage, call me back as soon as you see this. Do you have any idea how outrageous what you did last night was? My aunt is still in the hospital. The doctor says there might be scarring. My mom is so angry she's on the verge of a heart attack. My dad even rushed back from out of town. Come apologize to my aunt right now and explain yourself. There's still a chance to fix this. Sage, I'm begging you. Can you stop making a scene? Just apologize. Lower your head a little. Is that really so hard? Do our 5 years together mean absolutely nothing to you? Reading the accusations and commands, Sage's heart sank inch by inch. Not a single word asking if her face hurt. Not a single question about why his aunt had struck her first. Every line blamed her, her fault, her irrationality, her obligation to apologize. This was the man she had loved for 5 years, the one she once believed she could spend her life with. She took a deep breath and didn't reply to a single message. Then she opened the voice messages from Elise. A sharp, venomous voice exploded from the speaker. Sage, I'm giving you 30 minutes to get your ass to the hospital and kneel down to apologize to my sister. I'm telling you right now, this isn't over. If you don't come and give me a satisfactory explanation, I'll make sure you can't stay in this city. You parentless little nobody. How dare you hit an elder? You've really gone too far. Sage listened to every message without changing her expression, then calmly blocked and deleted Elise. Next, she dialed a number. She was calling her direct supervisor at work, Morse, the head of the design department. Morse, sorry to bother you so early. I'd like to take 3 days of personal leave. There's an urgent family matter I need to deal with. On the other end, Morse sounded a little surprised. Sage? Taking leave all of a sudden. You don't sound quite right. Are you okay? I'm fine, just a bit tired. I'll submit the leave request online shortly. All right. Take care of things at home first. I'll have Caspian cover your work for now. Thank you, Director. After hanging up, Sage finally let out a small breath of relief. She wasn't ready to face her coworkers' questions or curious looks just yet. She needed time and space. She had just set her phone down when there was a soft knock on the bedroom door. Sage, if you're awake, come out and have breakfast, her mother Elowen called. Sage gathered herself and opened the door. A simple breakfast of porridge and side dishes sat on the table. Her father, Silas, was already seated, pretending to read the morning paper, though his eyes kept drifting toward her. Elowen ladled a bowl of porridge for her and asked cautiously, Sage, tell Mom the truth. Did something happen between you and Kai's family yesterday? Silas lowered the paper and looked at her seriously. Sage knew there was no hiding it anymore. She set down her spoon, looked at her worried parents, and said in a calm she'd never felt before, Dad, Mom, Kai and I are over. Elowen's chopsticks slipped from her hand and clattered onto the table. What do you mean over? Didn't you just have the engagement party yesterday? Sage kept it brief, stripping away emotion. She objectively recounted how Lila had deliberately made things difficult, how she'd been slapped in public, how she'd retaliated with the soup, and how Kai had reacted, or failed to. When she finished, Elowen's face turned ghostly pale. She clutched her chest, unable to speak for a long moment. Silas, on the other hand, shot to his feet and slammed his palm on the table, his face livid. Those bastards! The Bennett family has gone way too far. Elowen finally caught her breath, but her face was full of panic and anxiety. It's over. It's really over now. We've completely offended the Bennetts. Sage, how could you be so impulsive? That was Kai's aunt. How could you throw hot soup on her? Mom! Sage couldn't hold it in anymore. She hit me first, slapped me across the face in front of hundreds of people. What was I supposed to do? Just stand there and let her hit me. Let her humiliate me? But you still shouldn't have fought back. She's an elder. Elowen stamped her foot anxiously. What are we going to do now? You know what Elise is like? She's obsessed with face. She'll never let this go. What did Kai say? Him? Sage let out a cold laugh. He told me to go to the hospital and kneel down to apologize to his aunt. Elowen froze, then grew even more frantic. Then why don't you just lower your head a bit? Sage, listen to Mom, endure it, and things will calm down. The Bennetts are so well off, and Kai isn't a bad kid at heart. 5 years together isn't easy. Mom! Sage stood up abruptly, her voice trembling despite herself. Are you really my mother? Your daughter was slapped in public, and instead of asking if I'm hurt or heartbroken, all you do is tell me to apologize, to endure. Tears finally spilled down her cheeks. In their eyes, I'm not even a person. Kai is a complete coward in front of his family. A man like that, a family like that, why should I marry into it? To keep getting hit and humiliated? Silas grabbed Elowen before she could speak again and barked sharply. Elowen, that's enough. Our daughter's been wronged this badly, and you're still pressuring her? He turned to Sage, his eyes filled with pain and unwavering resolve. Sage, Dad supports you. Calling it off was the right choice. Our daughter has hands, feet, and ability of her own. We don't owe the Bennetts anything, and you don't need to swallow this kind of humiliation. Elowen looked at her sobbing daughter and her furious husband. She opened her mouth, then finally collapsed back into her chair, wiping away tears herself. I was just afraid about her future. Afraid of what? Silas's voice rose sharply. My daughter can support herself. You think without the Bennett family, she can't survive? Just then, the old landline phone in the living room rang sharply. The piercing sound instantly shattered the heavy atmosphere. Elowen jumped as if pricked by a needle, staring at the phone, then fearfully at Sage. It must be the Bennetts calling. Silas's face darkened. He strode over. I'll answer it. He took a deep breath before grabbing the receiver. Hello? Sage held her breath. Even from a distance, she could clearly hear Elise's shrill, piercing voice blasting through the line. Silas, look at the daughter you raised. Completely out of control. She dared to dump a pot of boiling soup on my sister. She's still lying in the hospital. I'm telling you, the Sage family, this is not over. Veins bulged on the back of Silas's hand gripping the phone, but he forced his tone to stay steady. Elise, Sage told me exactly what happened. Your sister struck my daughter first, in front of all those people. So what if she did? Elise cut him off rudely. An elder disciplining a junior is only natural. It was your daughter who disrespected her elders first. A Bennett family bride can never be someone so ill-mannered. That was the moment Silas completely lost his temper. What kind of discipline involves slapping someone in public? My daughter grew up without her mother or me ever laying a finger on her. Who do you think you are to teach her a lesson? Silas, watch your attitude. Elise shouted. I'm warning you, bring Sage to the hospital right now and apologize to my sister. If not only is this marriage off, I'll make your whole family pay. Good. Off is just fine. Silas roared back. We don't have the honor of marrying into a so-called elite family like yours. You want my daughter to apologize? Not happening! The one who should apologize is your violent, unreasonable sister. Fine. Silas, just wait. You all just wait. Elise screamed hysterically before slamming the phone down. The line went dead. Silas slammed the receiver back into place, his chest heaving with anger. Elowen's face was deathly pale. Silas, you've completely torn things apart now. Silas took a deep breath and looked at Sage, his expression a mix of fury, heartache, and faint worry. Sage, don't be afraid. If the sky falls, Dad will hold it up for you. Looking at her father's graying temples and his flushed face, Sage felt her heart ache and warm at the same time. She knew her father truly loved her and was genuinely heartbroken for her, but she also knew the Bennett family would never let this go. Elise's final threat, I'll make you regret this, was absolutely not an empty one. With the Bennett's influence and financial power in Star City, it was very likely they would resort to underhanded tactics. Sure enough, the next half-day passed in an eerie calm. So calm it made her uneasy. Sage stayed in her room, forcing herself to organize her thoughts. She logged onto her computer and began checking her work email. There were a few routine inquiries from colleagues about project progress, which she replied to concisely. But soon, something felt off. A construction design project she had been leading, already in its final phase, suddenly triggered a sharply worded email from the client's project head. The email harshly questioned several technical details of the proposal and strongly demanded that the company replace the project's primary liaison. The stated reason was serious concerns regarding the designer's emotional stability and professional integrity. Sage's heart sank. She had worked on this project for nearly a year. All prior communication had been smooth, and the client had never expressed dissatisfaction. Why would they suddenly turn on her at such a critical moment? She immediately messaged Leora, the client manager in charge of coordination, asking what was going on. Leora's reply was vague and hesitant, clearly conflicted. Sage, the client side seems to have heard some rumors about you. Something about personal issues. They said you lost control emotionally at your engagement banquet and physically assaulted an elder. They're worried that emotional instability could affect the project's final delivery. Sage's fingers tightened around the mouse until her knuckles turned white. Rumors? Lost control? Assaulted an elder? The Bennetts were fast, and their ability to twist the truth and strike first was impressive. They had deliberately taken the fight to her workplace, trying to cut off her escape routes entirely. She forced herself to stay calm and replied to Leora. Leora, those rumors are completely inconsistent with the facts. The truth is that an elder from the Bennett family publicly provoked me and physically assaulted me first. My response was self-defense. This is a personal dispute and has nothing to do with my professional ability or ethics. I will contact the client directly to clarify. The message disappeared into silence. No reply. A short while later, Director Morse called her directly. Sage, what exactly is going on over there? His voice was heavy with fatigue and seriousness. It's not just the Evergrande project. Partners from 2 other projects you're involved in have also been indirectly asking about you. There's already some gossip spreading inside the company. Sage felt herself sinking inch by inch into icy water. Director, Sage, I personally believe in your professionalism and character, Morse interrupted. But rumors can destroy reputations. While you're on leave, focus on handling your personal matters. On the work side, I'll do my best to stabilize things, but you need to resolve this quickly and eliminate the negative impact. In our industry, a designer's reputation is everything. I understand. Thank you, Director. After hanging up, an overwhelming sense of helplessness washed over her. The Bennett family wasn't just trying to hurt her emotionally, they were attempting a full-spectrum takedown, making sure she couldn't survive professionally either. Just then, her phone rang again. A local number she didn't recognize. She hesitated, then answered. Hello, is this Ms. Sage? A slick male voice came through the line. Yes. Who is this? I'm Soren, a reporter from Star City Daily. We've received a tip claiming that during your engagement banquet yesterday, you had a violent altercation with your fiancé's elder relative and severely burned his aunt with hot soup, resulting in her hospitalization. Is this true? Sage felt her blood freeze. They had even gone to the media. The Bennetts were blowing this up deliberately, aiming to destroy her reputation completely. Social death in this city. Soren, the truth is not what you described, Sage said, struggling to keep her voice steady. The other party attacked first. Oh? So you're admitting there was physical conflict and that you splashed hot liquid on her, causing injuries serious enough for hospitalization. The reporter cut her off immediately, his words full of leading traps. Sage became alert instantly. I'm sorry, but the detailed circumstances involve my personal privacy, and I'm not able to disclose them over the phone. However, I can clearly state that your source's information is one-sided and severely inaccurate. Ms. Sage, are you denying the allegations? Because we do have eyewitnesses. I have something to attend to. Goodbye. She hung up decisively, her heart pounding uncontrollably. She had never imagined the Bennett's methods would be so fast and so despicable. They pressured her at work and tried to manipulate public opinion to ruin her entirely. If distorted reports like this made it to print, she would be unable to defend herself no matter what she said. She sat before her computer, mind racing. She couldn't just sit and wait. She had to fight back. But a head-on collision, given her current position, would be suicide. She needed evidence. She needed an opening. Suddenly, she remembered the hotel where the nightmare engagement banquet had been held. The Grand Hyatt. A 5-star hotel of that caliber would definitely have surveillance cameras in the banquet hall. If she could obtain the footage, it would clearly prove that Lila struck first. She grabbed her phone and bag, preparing to head out. Just as she reached the living room, the doorbell rang. Elowen looked at Sage nervously. Sage stepped up to the peephole and carefully looked outside. 2 people stood there. One was Kai, his face dark and grim. The other was a uniformed police officer, expression stern. Sage's heart dropped. Why were the police here? She took a deep breath, straightened her clothes, and opened the door. Sage. Kai looked at her with an incredibly complicated expression. Resentment, avoidance, and more than anything, impatience. The police have a few questions for you. The young officer showed his badge and spoke formally. Miss Fiancé. Sage, correct? We received a report stating that yesterday at the Grand Hyatt Banquet Hall, you deliberately splashed hot liquid on another person, causing multiple burns to Ms. Lila's face and neck. She is currently hospitalized. We need you to come with us to the station to assist with the investigation. When Elowen heard words like station and investigation, her legs gave out and she nearly collapsed. Silas caught her just in time. Officer, there's been a misunderstanding. They hit our daughter first. Silas rushed forward. The officer replied neutrally, we'll determine the facts through investigation. For now, Miss Sage, please cooperate and come with us to give a statement. Sage looked coldly at Kai, her voice sharp as ice. You called the police. Kai avoided her gaze awkwardly and lowered his voice. My aunt's family did. Sage, if you're willing to go to the hospital now, apologize and write a letter of assurance. I can ask them to withdraw the case. Apologize? A letter of assurance? Sage almost laughed from anger. Kai, you and your family have truly opened my eyes. She turned around, straightened her spine, and calmly faced the officers. Officer, I'll go with you, but I must formally state that the incident was preceded by verbal humiliation and physical assault from the other party. My actions constituted self-defense. The banquet hall has 360-degree surveillance coverage, which can fully verify my statement. The officer nodded. We'll verify all of that. Please come with us to make a statement. Sage. Elowen sobbed, gripping her hand tightly. Silas clenched his fists. I'm going with you. Dad, Mom, stay home and wait for me. I'll be fine. Sage turned to comfort them instead, her voice steady beyond belief. The truth will speak for itself. She followed the officers and Kai downstairs. Kai tried to get into the same car with her, but Sage only gave him a cold glance, then pulled open the back door of the police car herself and climbed in. Kai froze where he stood, his expression darkening even further. On the way to the station, Sage watched the streets outside blur past the window. Instead of panic, a strange calm settled over her. The harder the Bennett family pressed, the more aggressively they played their hand, the clearer it became. They were guilty. They were afraid. They wanted to force her into submission through sheer pressure. Unfortunately for them, they had chosen the wrong target. Sage had never been someone who could be kneaded and crushed at will. At the station, the process of taking her statement was painfully long. Sage recounted the entire incident as objectively, calmly, and thoroughly as possible. She repeatedly emphasized how Lila had verbally humiliated her and how she had struck first, and how Sage's response came only after being publicly insulted and assaulted, an emotional but defensive reaction. She clearly and repeatedly requested that the hotel's surveillance footage be retrieved. The officer recording her statement documented her request, but explained that obtaining surveillance footage required following proper procedures and would take time. After the statement was completed, the police allowed her to return home, instructing her to keep her phone on at all times and be ready to cooperate if summoned. By the time she stepped out of the station, night had fully fallen. Kai was still waiting at the entrance. The moment he saw her, he hurried toward her. Sage. She couldn't even be bothered to look at him. and walked straight past. Panicking, Kai grabbed her arm. Sage! Do you really have to take things this far? The police are involved now. If you don't bow your head and admit fault, if this leaves a record, your life will be ruined. Sage yanked her arm free and looked at him as if he were a complete stranger. Kai, the moment your aunt hit me and you stood by doing nothing, that was the moment you destroyed me. You and your family. I did it for your own good. Save your hypocritical excuses. They make me sick. Sage let out a cold laugh. If you truly cared about me, you would have stepped in front of me when your aunt slapped me. You would have stopped them when your mother and aunt humiliated me together. Instead, you chose to join them, pressuring me, even calling the police to arrest me. Kai was left speechless, his face turning a deep, ugly red. We're done. Sage enunciated every word clearly and decisively. Please tell you and your so-called distinguished relatives to stay away from me and my family from now on. Otherwise, I won't hesitate to use the law to protect my rights. With that, she turned toward the street, flagged down a passing taxi, and drove off, leaving Kai standing there, stunned. In the rearview mirror, Kai stood alone at the station entrance, his figure stretched long under the streetlights, growing smaller and smaller. Sage leaned back against the seat, exhaustion washing over her as she closed her eyes. Everything that had happened today felt like a bizarre, surreal nightmare. But it was also a nightmare that had finally allowed her to see many things, and many people, clearly. When she arrived downstairs at her apartment complex, Sage didn't go up right away. Instead, she walked alone to a secluded bench in the community garden and sat down. The night breeze was cool. As it brushed against her still-burning cheeks, her foggy mind cleared a little. Her phone vibrated. It was a message from her best friend, Thea. Sage, are you okay? I heard something huge happened at your engagement banquet. Did Kai's freak of an aunt really hit you? And you splashed her back? A string of shocked and worried emojis followed. Warmth surged through Sage's chest. Thea had been her closest friend for all 4 years of college and was now working at a well-known advertising firm in a neighboring city. Sage called her. The call was answered almost instantly. Oh my God, Sage. What the hell happened? The version that reached me is completely insane. They're saying you went crazy at your engagement banquet and assaulted an elder. Thea's anxious voice came through the phone. Hearing her friend's familiar voice, the rigid shell Sage had been holding together finally cracked. Her nose stung uncontrollably. Keeping her voice as steady as she could, she briefly explained what had happened. On the other end, Thea exploded. Holy crap! Is Kai even a man? Is his whole family sick in the head? That old witch deserved to be splashed. Good for you. You absolutely did the right thing. That kind of family is not one you marry into. Marrying them would be jumping straight into hell. After venting furiously, Thea calmed down. Sage, what are you planning to do now? From the way the Bennetts are acting, they won't let this go. Has your work been affected too? Yes. Sage told her about the pressure at work and the call from the reporter. There was a brief silence on the line before Thea suddenly said, Sage, didn't you mention before that you were preparing for an international design competition called Elysian? Isn't your entry almost finished? Sage froze. With all the chaos surrounding the engagement, she had nearly forgotten about that important competition. The draft is basically done, but it still needs a lot of refinement. Then finish it now and enter the competition. Thea's tone turned fiercely resolute. Use your talent to slap them in the face. If you win an award at that competition and gain international recognition, all this filth they're throwing at you will turn into a joke. By then, top-tier companies and major media outlets will be lining up to speak for you. Thea's words were like a blinding beam of light, slicing through every trace of darkness and confusion in Sage's heart. She was right. She still had her greatest pride, her professional skill. She still had her unfinished dreams. Instead of getting dragged into the Bennett's filthy games, trapped in endless self-justification, she could simply step out of their low-level battlefield and rise to a higher plane, crushing them with undeniable strength. If she placed in that competition, it wouldn't just prove her ability. It would be the most powerful, most elegant, and most painful counterattack of all. Who would believe that an internationally acclaimed rising designer was a hysterical woman who assaulted an elder? And all of the Bennett's underhanded tricks would look laughable and clumsy in the face of true strength. A long-lost surge of power and hope rose fiercely from deep within her chest. "Thea, you're right." Life returned to Sage's voice. "I know exactly what I need to do." "That's it. That's the queen I know." Thea laughed on the other end. "If you need anything, just say the word. I even have some private savings." "No need." Sage smiled and interrupted her. "I still have enough money for now. Thank you, Thea. You woke me up." After hanging up, Sage felt every cell in her body reawaken with strength. She lifted her head and gazed at the sparse stars scattered across the night sky, her eyes sharp and resolute. Bennett family, just wait. This battle had only just begun. She took out her phone and dug through the corner of her inbox, pulling up an email she had nearly forgotten. The participation notice and submission guidelines for the Elysian International Young Designers Competition. There was less than a month left before the final submission deadline. She stood up and strode decisively toward home. Right now, she had a goal far more important than revenge. As soon as she reached the door, she heard her mother Elowen's suppressed sobbing inside, mixed with her father Silas's heavy sighs. She pushed the door open. Elowen was sitting on the couch, silently wiping away tears, while Silas sat beside her, chain-smoking with his head lowered. The ashtray in front of him was already overflowing with cigarette butts. The moment Elowen saw Sage, she rushed over. "Sage, did the police give you a hard time? What did they say? Will this leave a record on you? What are we going to do?" "Mom, I'm fine." Sage held her mother by the shoulders and guided her back to the couch. "I just cooperated with the investigation and explained what happened. The hotel has surveillance footage. It can prove that I acted in self-defense." "That's good. That's good." Elowen finally breathed a small sigh of relief, but her face quickly clouded again. "But the Bennett family definitely won't let this go. What about your job? And your reputation in the future? Who would still want you?" That last sentence was like a poisoned needle, stabbing into Sage's heart once more. But this time, instead of feeling wronged or angry, she simply looked at her mother calmly. "Mom, my life is my responsibility. If I lose my job, I'll find another one. And as for whether anyone wants me, your daughter doesn't need to be wanted by anyone in order to live." Her tone was calm, yet carried an unmistakable strength. Elowen stared at her blankly, as if seeing this unfamiliar resilience and power in her daughter for the first time. Silas stubbed out his cigarette, looked at Sage, and said in a deep voice, "Sage, whatever you want to do, go ahead. Your dad supports you." Warmth spread through Sage's chest. "Dad, Mom, from today on, I'm going to shut myself in for a few days to prepare for a design competition that's extremely important to me. As for things at home, and if the Bennett family comes knocking again, don't engage with them. Hang up the phone. Don't open the door. Leave everything to me." "A design competition?" Elowen asked, confused. "Yes, an international one. If I win, it could completely change my career." Sage didn't elaborate further. "I may not be able to help around the house these next few days. Just take care of yourselves. Don't worry about me." With that, she turned and went back into her room, locking the door behind her. She opened her computer and smoothly launched her design software. On the screen was the project she had carefully conceived for this competition, a series called Metamorphosis. It was an architectural interior design concept that fused traditional Eastern mortise and tenon structures with modern minimalist aesthetics. Her progress had been delayed by the chaos surrounding the engagement. Now, every second counted. She put on her noise-canceling headphones, shutting out the outside world, and poured her entire focus into lines, light, shadow, and structure. Here, she was the absolute master. Here, she could reclaim her inner calm and strength. Without realizing it, dawn had broken outside the window. Sage rubbed her aching eyes and looked at the now nearly perfected drawings on the screen, letting out a long breath. Though she hadn't slept all night, her mind felt sharper than ever. She stood up, stretched her stiff limbs, and was about to wash up quickly before continuing. When she opened the door, the gentle aroma of millet porridge drifted toward her. Her mother, Elowen, was busy in the kitchen, and several light-side dishes were already set out on the table. Seeing Sage come out, Elowen forced a slightly awkward smile. "I made some porridge. Eat it while it's hot. You worked all night. You must be exhausted." Sage was a little surprised. Her mother's attitude seemed to have shifted in a subtle way. "Thank you, Mom." She sat down and quietly ate the porridge. Elowen sat across from her, hesitating as if she wanted to say something. Finally, she spoke. "This morning, I called your Aunt Hayes, the one who used to work at the neighborhood office." Sage looked up. Lowering her voice, Elowen continued conspiratorially. "She told me Lila's son, the one named Jethro, seems to have gotten into serious trouble recently. His building materials company was reported under real names for cutting corners and passing off substandard materials as imported ones. The Market Regulation Bureau might be investigating him very soon." Sage's hand holding the spoon paused mid-air. Lila's son, Jethro, was a classic spoiled rich kid. Relying on family money, he had opened a construction materials company and had never been particularly clean in how he operated. This was very interesting information. "Mom, is this reliable?" "How do you know?" "Your Aunt Hayes has an old connection with the department head at the bureau. It's something she overheard. She said the Bennett family might be dealing with their own mess right now. Otherwise, with someone like Elise, after taking such a hit yesterday, she would have already raised hell today." Sage fell into thought. That could explain why the Bennetts hadn't escalated things aggressively after calling the police. It seemed their own hands weren't clean either. Could this become a potential breakthrough? But her top priority right now was finishing her competition submission. She couldn't afford distractions. "Mom, I know. You and Dad should try to go out less lately. If the Bennett family or any reporters show up again, don't open the door and don't answer the phone. Call me directly." Okay. Elowen nodded repeatedly. After breakfast, Sage returned to her room and threw herself back into her work. For the next full week, she barely stepped outside, locking herself in and devoting all her energy to refining the design and preparing the competition documentation. She cut off all outside interference. Kai called a few more times and sent long, emotional messages. She didn't answer, didn't reply, didn't even read them. Occasionally, colleagues messaged to check on her. She replied briefly, "Handling personal matters. Don't worry, I'll be back soon." Moore sent her a message as well, informing her that her project had been temporarily reassigned so she could focus on her situation. The words were considerate, but beneath them lay unmistakable pressure and observation. Sage knew time was running out. She had to keep everything under control until the competition results were announced. A week later, Sage finally packaged up the entry she had poured her heart and soul into, the complete set of renderings for the Breaking the Cocoon series, material specifications, and a detailed explanation of the design concept. After encrypting the files, she sent them to the official email address of the competition committee. The moment she clicked send, she let out a long breath, feeling utterly drained. Do everything humanly possible, then leave the rest to fate. Now it was time to turn back and deal with the mess that was the Bennett family. She opened her phone and began searching online for information about Jethro's building materials company. Publicly available information was extremely limited, mostly polished promotional content and corporate puff pieces. She suddenly remembered that when she had accompanied Kai to family gatherings before, she'd vaguely overheard Bennett relatives mentioning that Jethro's company seemed to have a long-term exclusive partnership with a developer called Dingsheng Real Estate, supplying a certain patented type of panel. She tried searching keywords like Dingsheng Real Estate complaints and Jethro building materials quality issues. A few scattered posts popped up, homeowners complaining that the renovation materials used in Dingsheng's developments were subpar, suspecting that the supplier had substituted inferior products, but none named names, and none gained much traction. They quickly sank into obscurity. It seemed unlikely she'd find solid evidence directly online. She needed a more professional channel. Suddenly, someone came to mind. Her college classmate, Orion, was now working as a legal assistant at a well-known law firm, primarily handling commercial disputes. Maybe he could offer some professional advice? or at least suggest ways to look into it. She sent Orion a message on WeChat asking if he was free to talk. He replied quickly and called her right away. "Hey, old classmate. Did the sun rise in the west today? What made you suddenly think of me?" Orion's voice carried a hearty laugh. After a brief exchange of pleasantries, Sage got straight to the point. She explained the conflict between herself and the Bennett family and said she wanted to learn whether Jethro's company might have underlying issues. She omitted specific names, referring only to a distant relative. Orion was quiet for a moment after listening. Sage, in situations like the one you're describing, if the company really has serious compliance problems, like passing off inferior goods or tax issues, verifying that requires a solid chain of evidence. Guesswork and scattered online complaints won't get you anywhere. Then, is there any way to find out? She asked. If you're a direct stakeholder like a homeowner involved in a quality dispute or a competitor who's had business stolen, and you already have preliminary leads, filing a real name report with regulatory authorities might trigger a formal investigation. But trying to dig into it in your personal capacity is extremely difficult, and it's very easy to alert them prematurely. He paused, then added kindly, "Sage, forgive me for being blunt, but from the sound of it, these people aren't easy to deal with. If you don't have absolute certainty, it's safer to avoid direct confrontation and focus first on resolving your own infringement issues through proper legal channels." Sage knew Orion was genuinely looking out for her. "I understand. Thank you, Orion. I'll think it through carefully." After hanging up, she felt a wave of disappointment. It seemed unrealistic to uncover a fatal weakness in the Bennett family in such a short time. Did that mean she could only passively wait for their next move, or place all her hopes on a competition with an uncertain outcome? She felt deeply unwilling to accept that. Lost in frustration, her phone rang again. It was a local landline number. She hesitated briefly, then answered. "Hello, is this Ms. Sage?" A gentle, courteous female voice came through. "Yes, this is she. May I ask who's calling?" "Hello, Ms. Sage. This is the housekeeping department of the Grand Hyatt Hotel. While organizing the banquet hall equipment yesterday, we found a brooch that a guest seems to have left behind. We'd like to confirm whether it belongs to you." A brooch? Sage tried to recall. On the day of the engagement banquet to match her dress, she did seem to have pinned a small pearl brooch at her collar. Had she lost it during the chaos? "May I ask what the brooch looks like?" "It's a very simple design. A single white pearl brooch." That was definitely hers. "Yes, it is mine. Thank you so much. I'll come pick it up when it's convenient." "Of course, Ms. Sage." Also, the caller's voice dropped slightly. "Regarding what happened in the banquet hall on the day of your engagement, our hotel is aware of the general situation. The relevant surveillance footage, in accordance with our policy, will be retained for a period of time. If you need it, you may have your lawyer retrieve a copy by presenting valid identification and the appropriate legal documentation." Sage's heart leapt. Was the hotel proactively extending an olive branch? Out of sympathy, or simply to avoid being dragged into an ugly dispute? Either way, it was incredible news. With the full surveillance footage, she could conclusively prove that Lila had been the one to strike first. "Thank you so much. I understand. I'll contact my lawyer as soon as possible to handle this." After hanging up, Sage was buzzing with excitement. With this video, at the very least, she would have the strongest possible weapon when facing police inquiries and any potential media storm stirred up by the Bennett family. She immediately messaged Orion again, asking about the procedure and approximate costs for hiring a lawyer to retrieve surveillance evidence. He replied quickly, giving her the contact information of a lawyer he knew well, someone particularly skilled in handling defamation and personal injury cases. Sage noted it down at once, planning to get in touch later. After all that, she finally felt as though a huge weight had lifted from her chest. Things seemed to be moving in a positive direction. She opened her laptop out of habit, wanting to check whether there was an automated reply from the competition committee. The moment she opened her inbox, she saw a new email. The sender's name jumped out at her. Elysian International Young Designers Competition Committee. Her heart skipped a beat, instantly leaping into her throat. So soon? Could it be the preliminary results? She took a deep breath and, with slightly trembling hands, opened the email. Dear Ms. Sage, thank you very much for participating in this year's Elysian International Young Designers Competition. We are pleased to inform you that your entry, Breaking the Cocoon, has successfully passed the preliminary round and has officially advanced to the final stage of the competition. The finals will be held on the 28th of this month at the S-City International Exhibition Center and will include physical presentation of the work as well as a live defense session. Please refer to the attached document for the detailed schedule and participation guidelines. We sincerely invite you to attend on time. She made it. Her work had really advanced to the finals. Sage was so excited, she almost jumped out of her chair. An uncontrollable wave of joy swept through her in an instant. This was the highest affirmation of her professional ability and, more importantly, her greatest hope of breaking free from all her current troubles. She checked the date carefully. The finals were only 2 weeks away. Time was extremely tight. She needed to immediately start preparing the physical model for the exhibition, the PPT for the live defense, and also book her travel and hotel. There was no time to waste. She first sent a formal email to Morse, applying for 2 weeks of leave. She kept it brief and to the point, explaining that she had advanced to the finals of an international competition and needed time to prepare. Morse's reply came almost instantly. His tone was completely different from before, full of enthusiasm and encouragement. Congratulations, Sage. This is fantastic news. The company will absolutely support you 100%. Your leave is approved immediately. Focus on preparing for the competition and bringing honor to the country. Don't worry about work at all. Sage knew that the bombshell news of advancing to the finals of an international competition was more than enough to temporarily neutralize all the unfavorable rumors circulating within the company. She picked up a pen and began writing a preparation checklist on paper. While she was busy, the landline at home rang again. Her mother, Elowen, hurried over to answer it. Hello? Oh, it's Kai's mother. Elowen's voice instantly tightened with tension. Sage put down what she was holding and quickly walked into the living room. Covering the receiver with her hand, Elowen silently mouthed to Sage. It's Elise! Sage stepped forward and gestured for her mother to hand her the phone. Elowen hesitated for a moment, then passed it to her. Sage took the receiver, her tone calm and steady. Hello, Auntie. On the other end, Elise's voice still carried its usual air of condescension, though it lacked the earlier hysteria. Sage, you finally decided to answer the phone? My phone has been on the whole time. Is there something you need, Auntie? Elise snorted. My elder sister has been discharged from the hospital. The doctor says the burns weren't especially serious, but she was badly frightened and needs long-term recuperation. Medical bills, nutrition expenses, emotional distress compensation, it all adds up to quite a sum. Sage said nothing, quietly waiting for what came next. Seeing that Sage didn't take the bait, Elise had no choice but to continue. Our Bennett family isn't unreasonable. For the sake of the 5 years you and Kai spent together, as long as you're willing to publish a public apology in the newspaper and compensate my sister $200,000 for all her losses, we can consider letting bygones be bygones. You and Kai, there may still be room to reconcile. A public apology in the newspaper, $200,000 in compensation, and room to reconcile. Sage almost laughed in anger at Elise's shameless, upside-down version of reality. Gripping the cold receiver, she felt as if she were listening to a joke from some parallel universe. This family wasn't just domineering. They had an astonishing talent for rationalizing their own disgrace. Auntie, Sage said calmly, her voice as still as a bottomless ancient well, without the slightest ripple. Don't you think you might be mistaken about something? Elise clearly hadn't expected this reaction. She froze for a moment, then raised her voice sharply. Mistaken? What could I possibly be mistaken about? Every word I said was giving you a way out. Sage, don't be ungrateful. Kai is still willing to plead on your behalf. Do you really think you can find someone better once you leave him? A way out? Sage repeated softly, the corner of her lips curving into a cold smile. Auntie Elise, I don't need any way out bestowed by the Bennett family. I'll walk my own path in life. As for who should apologize, I believe the hotel surveillance footage will give the fairest answer. Surveillance footage? A flicker of barely perceptible panic crossed Elise's voice, but it was quickly replaced by even stronger arrogance. Don't try to scare people with that nonsense. I'm telling you, my sister being beaten is a fact. Dozens of relatives saw it with their own eyes. No matter how you twist your words, you can't change the fact that you assaulted someone. Then the 5 finger marks on my face are also a fact. And the fact that Ms. Lila struck first is something dozens of eyes also witnessed. Sage's tone remained calm, but every word was like an ice-tempered steel needle, piercing straight into the heart of the matter. The law considers cause and effect. It recognizes self-defense. I think those principles carry far more weight than the rules of your Bennett family. She paused briefly, giving the other party no chance to interrupt, and continued in a tone that sounded like a final verdict. As for the $200,000 in compensation, that's pure fantasy. If you insist on taking the legal route, I'm more than ready to accompany you to the end. When that time comes, what we'll see in court won't be just a personal injury case. Perhaps there will also be a defamation case. And finally, Sage said coldly, her voice like a Siberian wind, please convey this to Kai. There is no longer any room for reconciliation between us. From this day forward, we go our separate ways. Men marry, women wed, and we have nothing to do with each other. If you continue to harass me or my family, my lawyer will formally issue you a cease and desist letter. With that, Sage didn't waste another word. She hung up the phone with a sharp click, cutting off Elise's impending shrieks and curses as if sealing them away in another world. The living room fell into dead silence. Eloan and Silas stared at her in shock, as if they no longer recognized this daughter who stood before them, so calm, incisive, and razor-sharp in her words, as though she had become a different person altogether. Sage, you just said you're going to get a lawyer? Eloan asked, her voice trembling with worry. Sage took a deep breath and gave her parents a reassuring smile. Yes. Dad, Mom, this was never our fault to begin with. We don't need to be afraid. I've already contacted a lawyer and secured the most critical evidence. We don't go looking for trouble, but we're absolutely not afraid of it. From here on out, you don't need to worry about anything. Just live your lives in peace. Leave everything to me. Her gaze was unwavering, her tone steady. The powerful presence radiating from her seemed to calm her parents' anxious hearts. Silas looked at his daughter, the faint marks still lingering on the cheek that had once been swollen from being struck. Yet her eyes now shone like tempered steel, gleaming with a brilliance he had never seen before. Filled with both pride and heartache, he nodded heavily. All right, we'll do as you say. Over the next 2 days, Sage's life was split cleanly into 2 distinct halves. One part was devoted entirely to preparing for the finals of the Elysian competition. She almost locked herself in her room, pouring all her energy into refining and perfecting her work. She needed to create a high-precision physical architectural model. It would be the most important display piece at the finals. That required a huge amount of money and extremely meticulous craftsmanship. She checked quotes from every top-tier model-making company she could find. Even the cheapest would cost well over $100,000, and none could meet her timeline. She decided to do it herself. This was undoubtedly a massive undertaking. She withdrew all the savings she had accumulated over years of work and began a frenzy of purchasing professional materials. High-precision ABS sheets, acrylic panels, ultra-clear glass, miniature landscape vegetation, LED beads, circuit boards. Her small bedroom quickly turned into a miniature construction factory. Drawing, cutting, sanding, bonding, painting, wiring. She slept only 3 or 4 hours a day, like a tireless precision instrument, pouring every ounce of her effort into the model called Breaking the Cocoon. The inspiration for Breaking the Cocoon came directly from her recent experiences. The exterior of the building took the form of a huge, damaged cocoon, composed of interwoven, seemingly oppressive structures, symbolizing confinement and adversity. Yet once inside, it opened into a vibrant, light-filled, upward-growing space, representing the awakening and breakthrough of inner life. The core of the design was a butterfly wing structure in the roof that could automatically open and close with changes in light. When the sunlight was at its strongest, the wings would slowly unfold, channeling light into the very heart of the building, achieving an artistic climax of breaking free and being borne toward the light. The process was grueling, yet profoundly healing. With every detail she completed, with every step the model took closer to her ideal, it felt as if a piece of the wound in her heart was being mended. She wasn't just building a model, she was reconstructing a new, stronger version of herself. The other half of her life, meanwhile, was a silent game of chess with the Bennett family. She formally retained the senior lawyer Orion had introduced. After listening to her full account and learning that she had already secured the hotel's cooperation, Attorney Tate was very optimistic about the case. Acting swiftly, he issued a formal evidence preservation request to the Grand Hyatt in the name of his law firm. At the same time, the Bennett family clearly had no intention of letting things rest. Soren from Stargazer City Daily called again, his words thick with insinuation and threat. He claimed they had interviewed multiple eyewitnesses and were preparing an in-depth exposé titled something like Heiress-to-be assaults an elder, with every line pressuring Sage to settle privately. Sage simply recorded the call and replied calmly, "Soren, as a journalist, I strongly advise you to review a piece of video evidence that can restore the truth 100% before publishing anything. Otherwise, my lawyer's letter may soon be sitting on your desk. And as a friendly reminder, compared to my family dispute, the product quality issues at Jethro Building Materials might be a much more newsworthy story." With that, she hung up. She wasn't sure whether he would dig deeper, but the seed of doubt had to be planted by her own hand. A storm seemed to be brewing, yet on the surface, everything remained in an eerie calm. Kai never reappeared, and Elise stopped calling to harass her. Sage knew they were waiting for a report that would nail her to the pillar of shame, or for the outcome of the police investigation. But events soon began to veer in a direction the Bennett family had never anticipated. On the afternoon of the fourth day, Attorney Tate called, his tone relaxed. "Miss Sage, good news. The hotel has been extremely cooperative. We've successfully obtained full high-definition footage from 4 different angles of the banquet hall on the day of the engagement. I've just finished reviewing it in full. The video clearly and completely records Ms. Lila's entire process, from provocation and verbal abuse to physically attacking you. This evidence is airtight." The weight that had been hanging over Sage's heart finally lifted completely. Holding the phone, she let out a long breath. "That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Attorney Tate." "Just doing my job," Tate continued. "Per your instructions, I've submitted a copy to the local police station handling your case. In addition, on your behalf, I've formally sent a legal notice to Ms. Lila demanding a written apology for her defamation, insults, and intentional assault, while reserving the right to pursue further legal action." This meant the balance of power had completely reversed. She had gone from a suspect passively awaiting investigation to a victim holding ironclad evidence and taking the initiative. Another piece of good news arrived unexpectedly. That evening, in search of a special type of miniature lighting, she went to a large building materials market on the outskirts of the city. In a lighting shop, she inadvertently overheard the owner complaining to another customer, "This is just rotten luck. We supplied a batch of goods to that new project by Ding Sheng last year, and there's still over 300,000 unpaid. When we chase Ding Sheng, they say the developer hasn't paid. When we go to that bastard Jethro, he insists the materials are fine and tells us to wait. Damn it, I suspect those two are in cahoots, deliberately screwing over small suppliers like us. Tell me about it." "I heard Jethro's company is under serious cash flow pressure lately. He sold substandard materials to Ding Sheng as premium goods, got caught, and Ding Sheng docked him heavily. Now he's stuck between both sides and can only stall by not paying suppliers like you." Sage's heart jolted. She casually walked over and joined the conversation. "Excuse me, Are you talking about Jethro, the owner of Jethro Building Materials? The shop owner glanced at her, irritation in his eyes. Who else could it be? Everyone in Star City knows what kind of person he is. Riding on a bit of influence from his mother's side of the family, cheating people left and right. Sage's mind raced. This was a perfect breakthrough. If she could unite these suppliers who were owed money, and even uncover evidence of the penalties Dingsheng Real Estate imposed due to quality issues, it would be a fatal blow to Jethro and the Bennett family. Keeping her composure, she said, "To be honest, I was scammed by Jethro too. He owes me a design fee and has been dodging payment. If you trust me, we could exchange contact information. I know an excellent lawyer. Maybe we can band together and seek justice. There's strength in numbers. It's better than fighting alone." The owner looked at her doubtfully, but thinking of the more than 300,000 he was owed, he finally gritted his teeth and exchanged contact details with Sage. Over the next 2 days, Sage worked frantically on the model while using spare moments to contact other suppliers introduced by the lighting shop owner, people who were also owed money by Jethro. She created a small rights protection group and added attorney Tate to it, providing everyone with free legal guidance. Under Tate's professional and clear direction, the suppliers, once scattered and only good at complaining, began systematically organizing contracts, delivery notes, payment demands, and other evidence. A force of counterattack was quietly taking shape. Meanwhile, the Bennett family finally received a double surprise from both the police station and attorney Tate. When the police informed Lila that the surveillance footage proved she had struck first, that Sage's actions did not meet the threshold for a criminal case and at most constituted excessive self-defense in a civil dispute, and then issued her a verbal warning instead, Lila exploded on the phone. And when she received attorney Tate's sharply worded legal notice demanding a public apology, Lila was so furious she nearly fainted on the spot. Elise's call, seething with rage, rang through to Silas's phone once again. This time, it was Sage who answered. "Sage! You little bitch! What kind of witchcraft did you use? How dare you turn around and sue my sister?" Elise's shrill voice was sharp enough to pierce eardrums. "Annalise, I'm simply using the law to protect myself," Sage replied evenly. "Also, please mind your language. I'm recording this call, and every word you say can become fresh evidence of insult and defamation. You." Elise choked, speechless for a moment, then abruptly changed tactics, throwing a tantrum. "I don't care! My sister being scalded by you is a fact. You ruining our engagement banquet is also a fact. You've made the Bennett family a complete laughingstock. This isn't over. Don't think hiring a lawyer with a bit of dirty money makes you impressive. In Star City, our Bennett family has 100 ways to make sure you can't survive. Is that so?" Sage let out a soft laugh. "Like having Star City Express publish another false report? Or continuing to spread rumors at my workplace? Or perhaps letting a few more suppliers file rights protection claims against your son Jethro's company?" On the other end of the line, there was instant, deathly silence. Sage knew she had struck precisely where it hurt. After several seconds, Elise finally spoke again, almost through clenched teeth. What exactly do you want?" "I don't want anything," Sage's voice cooled. "I just want my justice and my dignity back. Please tell Miss Lila, I'll give her 3 days to consider. Either she publishes a public apology to me in Star City Evening News, or we'll meet in court. And by then, that wonderful video, I imagine a lot of media friends will be very interested." With that, she decisively hung up again. This round, she had won outright. Still, Sage didn't relax for a second. She knew that when desperate people are cornered, they'll jump the wall, and people like Elise and Lila would never give up easily. Sure enough, 2 days later, just as Sage's model making entered its most critical final phase, Kai appeared downstairs at her building without any warning. That evening, Sage went downstairs to take out the trash. The moment she stepped out of the building, she saw that familiar yet strangely distant figure. He was leaning against a brand new BMW, the very car they had planned to buy as their wedding car after the engagement. He looked far more haggard than before, stubble on his chin and heavy dark circles under his eyes. When he saw Sage, he hurried over, forcing a fawning, anxious smile. "Sage, can we talk?" Sage looked at him with complete emotional detachment, almost amused. She couldn't even be bothered to give him an extra glance and turned to leave. "Sage, don't go." Kai panicked and grabbed her wrist. "I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Can you give me one more chance? We had 5 years together." "Let go." Sage's voice was ice cold. "I won't." "Sage, listen to me." Kai clung to her, his voice trembling with tears. That day I wasn't trying not to help you. I was just stunned. She's my aunt, she's my mom. I was stuck in the middle. What could I do? So your choice was to stand by and watch me get hit, then turn around and blame me, forcing me to apologize. Sage shook his hand off and looked at him with disgust. Kai, you weren't stunned. You were cowardly. You were selfish. In your heart, your pride, and your family's feelings have always mattered more than my dignity. You're here now because you've realized I'm not easy to bully, and you're afraid this blowing up will hurt your family, aren't you? Kai's face flushed and paled in turns. She had hit the truth, yet he still tried to argue. No. Sage, I really love you. I haven't been able to eat or sleep these days. I can't stop thinking about you. Look, I even picked up the car already. It was supposed to be a surprise for you. He pointed at the brand new BMW as if it were a magic key that could fix everything. Sage looked at the gleaming car and felt only bitter irony. She had once imagined sitting in its passenger seat, planning the future with him. Now, in her eyes, it was no different from a pile of scrap metal. A surprise? Sage looked at him and spoke slowly, word by word. Kai, do you still not understand? What I once wanted wasn't your car or your money. It was you standing firmly by my side when the whole world misunderstood me. You couldn't give me that. You never could. So we're done. No. Sage, you can't do this to me. Kai suddenly lost control, lunging forward to try to hold her again. Come back, please. I'll agree to anything. I'll make my aunt apologize. We'll compensate you any amount. Just come back. Get lost. Sage shouted sharply, shoving him away with all her strength. At that moment, an angry voice rang out from nearby. Let go of my daughter. It was Silas. Somehow he had come downstairs, gripping a mop handle he'd grabbed from somewhere. He stormed over, yanked Sage behind him, and pointed the handle straight at Kai. You bastard! You dare harass my daughter again. Let me tell you, our family is done with yours. Clean cut! Touch Sage one more time and I'll break your legs. Silas was just an ordinary wage worker, honest and unassuming his whole life. Yet in that moment, standing in front of his daughter, his back looked towering. Intimidated by his presence, Kai stumbled back 2 steps. He was about to say something when Sage grabbed her father's arm. Dad, don't waste words on him. Let's go upstairs. She couldn't be bothered to look at Kai again, turning away as she supported her father and left. Watching their resolute retreating figures, Kai finally broke down. Leaning against the shiny new car, he let out a hoarse, desperate howl, filled with regret and resentment. But none of that mattered to Sage anymore. Back at home, Elowen learned what had happened downstairs and was so angry she kept muttering to herself. Sage, however, was unusually calm. She went back into her room, closed the door, and continued the final finishing touches on her model. Kai's appearance hadn't stirred a single ripple in her heart. If anything, it only confirmed how right she had been to leave that quagmire behind. There were only 3 days left until the final. After nights of sleepless work, the model was finally completed to perfection. When Sage lit the very last miniature LED, the entire Breaking the Cocoon model glowed softly yet resolutely in the darkened room. She was so exhausted she could barely stand, yet her heart brimmed with an unprecedented sense of accomplishment. She photographed and filmed the model from every professional angle, then began assembling the final presentation PPT. Into it, she wove her design philosophy, material choices, structural ingenuity, and, most importantly, the emotional core of breaking free, becoming a butterfly, and living toward the light. The day before the finals, she booked the earliest flight to City S. New developments also came from Attorney Tate. Under the combined pressure of the final legal ultimatum and public opinion, Lila finally caved. She chose not to issue a public newspaper apology, which would have been even more humiliating, but instead, through her lawyer, sent over a handwritten letter of apology. In it, she sincerely admitted to her impulsiveness and mistakes that day, expressed her willingness to take full responsibility for all of Sage's emotional and material damages, and enclosed a check for 100,000 yuan as compensation. Sage asked Attorney Tate to return the check. She didn't need their money. What she wanted was justice. That letter of apology was the trophy she had earned. As for Jethro, with Attorney Tate's involvement and coordination, several suppliers had already joined forces and were preparing to file a class action lawsuit against Jethro Building Materials. A much greater storm was gathering over the Bennett family. For now, Sage set all of that aside. At this moment, she had only one goal: Elysian. City S International Convention and Exhibition Center. As the most influential youth design competition in Asia, the Elysian Finals dazzled with star power, bringing together top designers, architectural critics, major media outlets, and investors from around the world. The air itself seemed infused with elitism and creativity. Dragging her massive model case, Sage walked into her assigned booth. She glanced around. Every exhibit was ingenious and visually striking, and the intensity of the competition was obvious. Yet she felt no nervousness at all. Instead, her mind was calm and steady. She carefully placed her cocoon breaker model onto the display table, connected the power, and adjusted the lighting. When the exquisitely crafted architectural model, like a work of art, came alive under the spotlights with its dramatic interplay of light and shadow, it immediately drew the attention of nearby contestants and spectators. "Wow, amazing work!" exclaimed a blonde, blue-eyed contestant beside her. Sage smiled and nodded in response. Throughout the entire day of exhibitions, her booth was constantly surrounded by people. Professional judges stopped to ask detailed questions about the structure. Media reporters snapped photos non-stop, and talent scouts from architectural firms handed her their business cards. She introduced her work to every visitor with confidence and composure. Her fluent English, professional terminology, and genuine passion for design made her shine. This was a feeling she had never experienced among the Bennetts. True respect, true recognition. However, an hour before the final defense was about to begin, the appearance of an unwelcome guest shattered the harmony of the scene. It was Kai. No one knew how he had managed to obtain a finals entry pass. Pale-faced, he pushed through the crowd and walked straight up to Sage. "Sage." His voice was terribly hoarse. Sage frowned, her tone icy. "What are you doing here?" I'm here to beg you. One last time," Kai said, his eyes filled with despair and pleading. My mom is almost losing her mind. Some reporter dug up dirt on my cousin's company, no idea how, and now the internet is flooded with negative news about our family. The company's stock price is crashing, and several partners are pulling out. You received my aunt's apology letter, right? Could you please show some mercy and let us go?" Sage looked at him coldly. "Let you go? When you all joined forces to destroy my life, did you ever think about letting me go?" "No." "Sage, it wasn't like that." Kai protested anxiously. "It was all my mom and my aunt. It wasn't me at all. And wait, my mom might be here too. She just called me and said she's coming to find you and clear things up face to face." "What? Elise was here too?" What was she planning to do? 'Cause a scene at an international event like this in front of so many media outlets and judges? Sage's heart sank. She wasn't afraid of Elise throwing a tantrum, but she couldn't allow that mad woman to ruin a competition that meant everything to her. Just then, the host began announcing in both Chinese and English, asking the finalists to proceed backstage and prepare for the final on-site defense. Sage glanced at Kai, lowered her voice, and spoke with unprecedented warning in her tone. "Kai, for the sake of the 5 years we once had, I'll warn you one last time. Control your mother. If she dares to cause trouble here and destroys everything I've worked for, I promise you, the Bennett family will pay 100-fold for it." With that, she ignored the stunned Kai and turned swiftly toward the backstage area. Watching her resolute figure retreat, and thinking of his mother's reckless, unhinged temperament, an icy chill crept up from Kai's feet. He knew that if his mother truly lost control today, everything would become completely, irreversibly ruined. In a panic, he pulled out his phone and frantically dialed Elise's number. The defense session began. Designers took the stage one by one according to the draw, facing a panel of 5 world-renowned architectural masters as judges, presenting their works. Sage's turn came midway through the lineup. When her name was called, she took a deep breath and stepped onto the spotlighted stage. On the massive LED screen behind her, her carefully prepared PPT began to play. From inspiration and structural analysis to material application and lighting design, every slide was clear, professional, and visually refined. Holding the microphone, her voice was not loud, but it was steady, clear, and filled with confidence. "My work is titled Cocoon Breaker. The original inspiration came from reflecting on the eternal theme of constraint and breakthrough in life." She spoke calmly and fluidly, seamlessly weaving her understanding of architecture, space, and human nature into her presentation. Each of us may have experienced our own cocoon at some point. It may come from external pressure or from inner restraints. Through this design, I wanted to explore whether architecture, as the space we inhabit, can offer us strength, the strength to break free from constraints and move toward the light. Her speech moved everyone present. The judges nodded frequently, appreciation clearly visible in their eyes. That is why, on the roof, I designed this automatically opening and closing butterfly wing structure. It is not merely a functional daylighting device, but a symbol, an act of ritual. It symbolizes that no matter what hardship we face, as long as there is light in our hearts and we dare to spread our wings, we will eventually reach our own moment of breaking free from the cocoon and becoming a butterfly. As she finished, thunderous applause erupted from the audience. And at that very moment, something unexpected happened. "Fraud! She's a fraud! Don't let her fool you!" A shrill female voice suddenly exploded from the back of the hall. The crowd turned in shock, only to see a middle-aged woman dressed in luxury, her expression agitated to the point of near madness, being restrained by several security guards as she struggled desperately to push forward. It was Elise. Behind her stood Lila as well, her face twisted with anger, a faint scar still visible on her head. "She's a vicious shrew. She even dares to beat her own elders. She doesn't deserve to stand there. She's a woman with no morals at all," Elise screamed hysterically, throwing caution to the wind. The venue instantly descended into chaos. Camera flashes went wild as every media outlet aimed their lenses at the sudden disturbance. At the judges' table, several masters frowned, displeasure clearly written across their faces. Sage stood at the center of the stage under the spotlight. As she looked at the 2 women throwing a fit like rabid dogs, her heart, after a moment of shock, quickly calmed instead. It seemed the worst-case scenario had still come to pass. But she had been prepared. She showed no panic, no confusion, not even a trace of anger. She simply watched the ugly farce unfolding below, then lifted the microphone and spoke calmly to the stunned host and judges. "Distinguished judges, honored guests, I sincerely apologize for this unpleasant interruption. These 2 ladies do indeed have some personal disputes with me." Her voice, amplified through the sound system, rang clearly throughout the hall, instantly overpowering Elise's shrieks. All eyes shifted back to her. Facing everyone's gaze, there was not a hint of embarrassment on her face, only a composed, powerful calm. "They accused me of assaulting an elder and of moral corruption. So what is the actual truth? Rather than listening to conflicting claims, I believe it would be better to let a video speak for itself." She turned toward the technical crew backstage and gave a subtle look. "Director, please play the video file on my USB drive titled Truth." The technicians froze for a moment, then, at the director's signal, moved swiftly. The next second, the massive LED screen behind her changed. The dazzling crystal chandeliers of the Grand Hyatt Hotel ballroom appeared. It was the high-definition surveillance footage. In the video, the time, location, and people involved were all unmistakably clear. The footage began with Lila holding a wine glass and walking over to Sage. The entire hall fell into dead silence. Everyone held their breath, watching what unfolded on the screen. They saw clearly how Lila used cutting, humiliating words, how the Bennett family members joined in to apply pressure, how Kai shrank back in cowardice. Then came the most crucial moment. In the video, Lila's venomous words, "Today I'll teach you some manners on behalf of your dead parents," rang out clearly through the speakers. Immediately after, that thick hand adorned with an oversized jade ring, magnified countless times on the screen, swung down brutally and slapped Sage across the face. Smack! The crisp sound of the slap echoed through the vast exhibition center via the state-of-the-art sound system, like a heavy hammer striking every heart present. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Elise and Lila's screaming stopped abruptly. They stared at the screen in disbelief at their own ferocious faces, their complexions turning deathly pale in an instant. The video continued. On screen, Sage covered her face, stunned for a few seconds. Then she suddenly lifted the pot of scalding hot soup and, without hesitation, poured it over Lila's head and face. At that moment, instead of condemnation, faint murmurs of, "She deserved it," could be heard from a few corners of the hall. The video ended. The screen went dark. The entire venue sank into a stunned, oppressive silence. Sage remained standing quietly on the stage, the spotlight stretching her figure tall and resolute. She lifted the microphone once more, her gaze sweeping across every face in the audience before finally settling on the judges' panel. "This," she said, her voice carrying the faintest tremor but far more calm and resilience forged through fire, "is the full truth behind the so-called assault on an elder. As a designer, I believe that beauty lies not only in form, but in the spirit it carries. My work is called Cocoon Breaker, and my own life, not long ago, went through a painful process of breaking free from its cocoon. To be humiliated in public, to be struck, to be betrayed by those closest to me, this was my cocoon. I fell into despair. I felt anger, but in the end, I chose to use my profession, my work, to complete my counterattack and my rebirth, because I know that true strength is not repaying violence with violence, but making yourself better, standing on higher ground, so that those who once belittled and hurt you can never reach you again." She paused, her eyes locking onto Elise and Lila, who now looked ashen and lifeless, her voice ringing with unwavering force. "Dignity is not something earned through endless tolerance and submission. It is something you reclaim, upright, and on your own terms. That is the full meaning my work, Cocoon Breaker, seeks to convey. Thank you." The moment her words fell, the hall was silent for 3 seconds. Then, thunderous applause erupted like a tidal wave, surging from all directions, nearly lifting the roof of the exhibition center itself. The applause came from the heart and did not fade. At the judges' table, all 5 architectural masters rose to their feet and applauded her. The chief judge, the venerable white-haired master, picked up the microphone and said, his voice trembling with emotion, "My child, you have brought us not only an outstanding design, but a profound lesson in dignity and courage. You truly deserve it." At that moment, the media's flashing cameras were no longer instruments of voyeurism, but crowns of tribute. Every lens focused on the Chinese girl on stage, tears in her eyes, yet her spine straight and unyielding. Below the stage, Elise and Lila completely collapsed under countless looks of contempt, anger, and mockery. Security guards rushed forward and dragged the 2 disgraced women out of the venue like dead weight. Hidden among the crowd, Kai witnessed everything. He looked at Sage on stage, radiant, applauded by the entire world, then at his mother and aunt being hauled away in humiliation. It was as if he had been struck by lightning. His entire body went cold. At last, he truly understood what he had lost. It was not just a lover, but a soul who could have made him a better person. Tears of regret slid silently down his cheeks. The farce came to an end in the most dramatic and most cathartic way imaginable. The final results of the competition were beyond doubt. Sage's work, Cocoon Breaker, won unanimous approval for its profound concept, exquisite execution, and the powerful personal integrity the designer herself had demonstrated. It claimed the highest honor of the Elysian International Young Designers Competition, the Golden Butterfly Award. When she took the weighty golden trophy from the hands of the chief judge, her tears finally overflowed. These were not tears of humiliation or sorrow, but tears of joy, of rebirth, of having all the dust washed away. As soon as the award ceremony ended, Sage was completely surrounded by the media. This time, however, she was no longer a suspect struggling to prove her innocence. She was the rising star of design, a symbol of an independent woman who had bravely stood up to injustice. Miss Sage, after experiencing such an incident, how did you adjust your mindset and create a work so deeply moving? Ms. Sage, how do you feel now about revealing the truth in this way on an international stage? Faced with countless microphones and cameras, Sage simply offered a calm yet radiant smile. She answered a few questions briefly. Then, just as everyone expected her to condemn the Bennett family, she instead took out her phone and, in full view of the media, sent a document she had prepared long ago to a reporter present, one she already knew for his reputation in in-depth investigative journalism. "Dear members of the press, thank you for your concern," she said. "As for my personal dispute, the video has already explained everything, and I don't wish to occupy public resources any further. However, I do have here some preliminary investigative materials and evidence leads regarding Jethro Building Materials Company's alleged use of substandard materials, corner cutting, and threats to public building safety. I believe this may be more newsworthy than my private affairs and far more deserving of public attention." The moment she finished speaking, the venue erupted in an uproar. The reporter who received the files reacted as if he had struck gold, instantly surrounded by his peers. A piece of gossip about personal grudges was, in a heartbeat, upgraded into a looming public safety scandal that would grip the entire city. Escorted by her assistant, Sage withdrew gracefully. Her mission accomplished, her name secure. With one brilliantly executed counterstrike, she dealt the Bennett family a fatal blow. That very night, headlines such as "New Elysian Champion Sage Exposes Fiancé's Family Scandal" live on stage swept across the internet. The full surveillance video, combined with Sage's powerful speech on stage, was edited into countless versions and spread virally. The internet exploded. "So badass! This is what a true female lead looks like. You slap me once, I douse you with a pot of soup, win an international award, and take down your whole family while I'm at it. She's my idol. This is exactly how you should strike back against bullying and gaslighting. Clean and decisive. The Bennett family is absolutely disgusting. They deserve it." Full support for a thorough investigation of Jethro Building Materials. Companies like this must be shut down. The tidal wave of public opinion crashed down with unstoppable force, completely drowning the Bennett family. Soon after, the heavy hammer of authority fell. The Market Supervision Bureau, Tax Bureau, and Construction Bureau formed a joint task force to launch a comprehensive investigation into Jethro Building Materials. With the leads provided by Sage and the real name reports from several suppliers, Jethro's crimes, cutting corners, contract fraud, tax evasion, were confirmed one by one, involving enormous sums. In the end, Jethro was sent to prison. Jethro Building Materials was sealed and fined heavily. The Bennett family's assets evaporated overnight, leaving them buried under debts they could never repay. Elise, suspected of covering up crimes and financial misconduct, was also dragged into the investigation, spending her days in tears. Lila became a laughingstock and pariah among relatives, avoided by everyone. As for Kai, the once high-spirited rich heir, he sold the brand new BMW, sold the house, yet still couldn't plug the financial hole at home. He was utterly ruined, a fallen failure with no face left to ever reappear in Sage's world. Sage learned of all this only through phone calls from her best friend, Thea. She felt no schadenfreude, no thrill of revenge, only a calm as if nothing had happened, because her life had already turned to a brand new page. After winning the Elysian Gold Award, she rose to fame in a single battle. The most prestigious design institutes in the country extended olive branches, inviting her to serve as chief designer. Countless high-end projects and renowned brands sought her collaboration. She founded her own design studio and brought her parents from Star City to a more prosperous first-tier metropolis. Elowen changed completely. She no longer spoke of girls should endure and compromise. Instead, she became her daughter's most devoted fan, proudly showing off Sage's designs to everyone she met. Silas quietly clipped every article about his daughter's awards and interviews, carefully preserving them in a thick scrapbook. 1 year later, at an art and design exchange exhibition at the Louvre in Paris, Sage, now a specially invited young designer, met again Alex, the blonde designer who had once praised her work at the Elysian competition. He was now one of Europe's most sought-after rising stars. Ms. Sage, Alex said, holding a glass of champagne, admiration shining in his blue eyes. I still remember your speech on the Elysian stage. It was the most beautiful design presentation I've ever heard. Sage smiled gently and clinked glasses with him. Thank you. It meant a great deal to me as well. I've always been curious, Alex asked sincerely. After all that, did you truly let it go? Those people who once hurt you. Sage looked at the golden liquid swirling in her glass, reflecting her composed, confident face. She thought for a moment, then smiled. I didn't deliberately try to let go. I just kept moving forward so fast that I left them far behind. When you're standing on the mountaintop, how could you still care about the small stone at the foot of the mountain that once made you stumble? Sunlight streamed through the Louvre's vast glass pyramid, bathing her in a warm, radiant golden glow. Behind her, there were no more shackles. Ahead of her stretched clear skies and fields of blooming flowers. The true breaking of the cocoon is not the end of revenge, but the beginning of a new life.